tribute to Laurel Hardy. Laurel and Hardy were a comedy duo act during the early classical Hollywood era of American cinema. The team was composed of Englishman Stan Laurel, who was born in 1890, and the American Oliver Hardy, who was born in 1892. They became well known during the late 1920s to the mid-1940s for their slapstick comedy, with Laurel playing the clumsy and childlike friend of the pompous bully Hardy. The duo's signature tune is known variously as the Cuckoo Song or the Dance of the Cuckoos. It was played over the opening credits of their films and has become emblematic of their duo as their bowler hats. Cuckoo Song was composed by Marvin Hatley for a completely different purpose. He explains what happened.
I made this little silly tune as a radio time signal to count the hours. And Stan Laurel came up and heard it and says, "That tune's for me. That's just what I want. That little cuckoo part's just what I like." So he says, "I'd like to use that for my theme." I says, "Well, swell." So then I showed him how it was put together. This represents Stan Laurel. It's supposed to be cuckoo. Same thing over. Not very bright. He's dull. He's stupid, see? That's what that means, stupid. And the big one, Babe, is very dominating, see? Arrogant. He's the boss. Like a bugle call in the army, see? So we put them together.
On the 1st of December 1954, the pair made their one American TV appearance when they were surprised and interviewed by Ralph Edwards on his live NBC TV program, This Is Your Life.
This is Your Life, America's most talked about program. And now here he is, Mr. This Is Your Life himself, Ralph Edwards.
Don't leave the set. This is going to be terrific. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us again on This Is Your Life. Now, tonight we have a startling surprise in store for you. Now, listen to this. We're going to recreate not one, but two lives. Wait till you see who they are. Now, right now, our two subjects are in room 205 of the Hollywood Knickerbocker Hotel. That's just a short block from here, just behind our theater, as a matter of fact. And they're talking to a friend of theirs, one of England's most prominent producers, Mr. Bernard Delfont of London, whom we've brought here to Hollywood just to make our surprise work. Now listen, we have a television camera hidden behind French doors in the kitchenette, you see, of the hotel suite over there. Now, on my signal, the door will fly open, so the doors will go open, the lights will go on, the speaker will go on so they can hear, and, well, you'll see what happens, I think. All right, now, everything ready, boys? Here we go. Take it away. Camera number 5 in the kitchenette of Suite 205 at the Hollywood Knickerbocker Hotel. Here we go. Open. Mr. Stan Laurel, Mr. Oliver Hardy. Stan Laurel and Oliver Hardy. This is Ralph Edwards speaking to you from the El Capitan Theater on Vine Street here in Hollywood. Your very good friends there, Mr. Bernard Delfont. Mr. Delfont, hello. Yeah, there you are. And Mr. Ben Shipman. Hello, Mr. Shipman.
Hello, sir.
Yes, they have joined with us in this surprise tribute to one of the greatest comedy teams of our time. 2 heads, 2 bodies, but one big laugh for over 30 years. Tonight, this is your life. I should say these are your lives. Stan Laurel and Oliver Hardy. Laurel and Hardy.
Stan Laurel was born on the 16th of June 1890 and was born Arthur Stanley Jefferson in Ulverston, Lancashire, into a theatrical family. His father, Arthur Joseph Jefferson, was a theatrical entrepreneur and a theatre owner in the north of England and Scotland, who with his wife was a major force in the industry. In 1905, the Jefferson family moved to Glasgow to be closer to their business mainstay of the Metropole Theatre, and Laurel made his stage debut in a Glasgow hall called Britannia Panopticon, 1 month short of his 16th birthday. Oliver Hardy was born on January the 18th, 1892. He was born Laurel Hardy in Harlem, Georgia. By his late teens, Hardy was a popular stage singer and he operated a movie house in Milledgeville, Georgia, the Palace Theatre, financed in part by his mother. For his stage name, he took his father's first name, calling himself Oliver Laurel Hardy, while off-screen his nicknames were Ollie and Babe. The nickname Babe originated from an Italian barber near the Lubin Studios in Jacksonville, Florida. He would rub Hardy's face with talcum powder and say, "That's a nice baby." Other actors in Lubin Company mimicked this, and Hardy was billed as Babe Hardy in his early films. Prior to emerging as a team, both actors had well-established film careers. Laurel appeared in over 50 films as an actor, while working as a writer and director, while Hardy has been in more than 250 productions. The two comedians had previously worked together as cast members on the film The Lucky Dog in 1921. However, they were not a comedy team at that time, and it was not until 1926 that they appeared in a short movie together, when they both separately signed contracts with the Hal Roach Film Studio. Laurel and Hardy officially became a team in 1927, when they appeared together in the silent short film Putting Pants on Philip. They remained with the Roach Studios until 1940, when they appeared in 8 B-movie comedies for 20th Century Fox and Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer. A popular routine the team performed was a tit-for-tat fight with an adversary. This could be their wives or with a neighbour, often played by Charlie Hall or James Finlayson. Laurel and Hardy would accidentally damage someone's property, and the injured party would retaliate by ruining something belonging to Laurel and Hardy. After calmly surveying the damage, they would do something else to vandalise, and the conflict would escalate until both sides were simultaneously destroying items in front of each other. An early example of the routine occurs in their classic short Big Business in 1929, which was added to the National Film Register in 1992. Another short film which revolves around such an altercation was Tit for Tat in 1935. One of their best remembered dialogues was the "Tell me again" routine. Laurel would tell Hardy a genuinely smart idea he came up with, and Hardy would reply, "Tell me that again?" Laurel would attempt to repeat the idea, but, having forgotten it, babble utter nonsense. Hardy, who had difficulty understanding Laurel's idea when expressed clearly, would understand the jumbled version perfectly.
Boy, oh boy! For the first first time in our lives we're a success. A nice little fish business and making money.
You know, Ollie, I've been thinking.
What about?
I know how we could make a lot more money.
How?
Well, if we caught our own fish, we wouldn't have to pay for it. Then whoever we sold it to, it would be clear profit.
Tell me that again.
Well, if you caught a fish, and whoever you sold it to, they wouldn't have to pay for it. Then the profits would they'd go to the fish. If you caught...
I know exactly what you mean. Your idea is to eliminate the middleman.
But sometimes Stan's idea would just cause complete confusion.
What's the matter with you? Too lazy to answer the door? Oh, good afternoon, Mr. Finlayson.
Good afternoon.
What's the idea?
I'm here to collect the payment on the furniture.
Why, it was paid yesterday.
Steady, woman. Not to me, it wasn't.
Oliver? Oliver?
Yes, baby, I'm coming.
There must be some mistake. Oliver, did I or did I not give you the money to pay on the furniture?
You certainly did.
Then why wasn't it paid?
Well, I gave it to him to pay it for me.
Then what did you do with it?
I gave it back to him.
You gave it to me?
Yeah, I gave it to you to pay my room and board. Then you gave it to her. Remember?
Do you mean to say that the money that he gave to you, that you gave to him, that he gave to me, was the same money that I gave to him to pay him?
Well, if that was the money that you gave to him to give to me to pay to him, it must have been the money that I gave him to give to you to pay my rent, didn't I?
Mr. Finlayson, I owe you an apology.
And $37.
Then this money must belong to you.
And the next time, I want my payment without any detour. Huh. He gave it to you, and you gave it to him, and who gave it to what? Why, you're all nuts!
You big dumbbell, I can't trust you to do a thing. And as for you, I've a good mind to throw you out.
You can't do it.
I can't do it.
No, because I paid my room and board in advance, and I gave it to him.
What do you mean you gave it to me? That was the money that she gave to me, and I gave it to you to give to him. Then you gave it back to me, and I had to give it to her to give to him.
Was that the money that she gave to him that I gave to you to give
Why, certainly.
Well, if she wants to give it to him, that's her business. No use you and I arguing about
Oh, cut it out, cut it out.
While much of their comedy remained visual, various lines of humorous dialogue appeared in Laurel Hardy's talking films. Some examples include,
Remember the old adage. You can lead a horse to water, but a pencil must be lead.
What are you trying to do? Do you want me to get my throat cut?
No.
Well, then don't go to sleep.
Well, I can't tell when I'm asleep.
That's why I want you to stay awake, so that you can see that you're not asleep.
Well, I couldn't help it. I was dreaming I was awake. And then I woke up and found myself asleep.
A lot of weather we've been having lately.
Laurel and Hardy included some classic songs in their films.
Just work your shoulders, snap your fingers, one and all in the hall at the ball and song. Some more. Commence to dancing, commence to prancing, commence to prancing, right and left to glancing. Commence your dancing, slide, glide, prancing. You do the tango, jiggle, jiggle, the princess Tommy wiggle. Take your partner and you hold her. Slide
in the house.
Yes, sir.
I'll be back in a minute.
On a mountain in Virginia stands a lonesome pine. Just below is the cabin home of a little girl of mine. Her name is June, and very, very soon she'll belong to me. For I know she's waiting there for me 'neath that lone pine tree. In the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia, on the trail of the lonesome pine, in the pale moonshine, our hearts entwine, where she carved her name and I carved mine. Oh June, just like the mountains are blue, like the pine, I am lonesome for you. In the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia, on the trail of the lonesome pine.
In the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia, on the trail of the lonesome pine. In the pale moonshine, our hearts entwine, where she carved her name and I carved mine. Oh June, like the mountains I'm blue, like the pine, I am lonesome for you.
In the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia, on the trail of the lonesome pine.
On occasions, Laurel and Hardy used to visit England, and this was one of their visits in 1947.
Straight from Cuckoo Land came Stan Laurel, and tagging along behind, 21 stones worth of Oliver Hardy.
When were you last over here? 1932, wasn't it?
That's right.
1932. Now you're over here again. What are you going to do?
Well, we're going to do some personal appearances and also a picture.
What's the picture going to be called?
What's the name of the picture?
Robin Hood, I think.
Robin Hood.
Robin Hood. That should be good fun.
We hope so.
Are you visiting any relatives over here, Stan? I believe you come from Ulverston.
That's right. I'm going to visit my dad and my sister and a few cousins.
There are quite a lot of them over here.
There are quite a few.
What about you, Oliver?
Well, I've got a lot of cousins over here, too, I hope.
Anything you especially want to do over here, Oliver?
Nothing but try and make the people happy, and will you keep quiet a minute? And have a good time and have everyone else have a good time. I'm talking to the gentleman. Will you keep quiet just a moment? And then I think that after a couple of weeks we might... What is it?
You're standing on my foot.
Oh, I'm sorry.
When the Romney Hythe and Dymchurch Railway, the smallest public railway in the world, recently celebrated its 21st birthday, Messrs. Laurel and Hardy were invited to the party. One of their jobs was to reopen the section from Romney to Dungeness. They also slipped gently aboard one of the trains and enjoyed a trip on this very comfortable line. At New Romney Station, they met the mayor and shook hands all round. Like all small boys, the two comedians were greatly intrigued by the outsized toy engine, especially Hardy.
After finishing their movie commitments at the end of 1944, they concentrated on performing in stage shows and embarked on a musical hall career of England, Ireland and Scotland. They made their last film in 1950, a French-Italian co-production called Atoll K.
Oh, look! What is it? Well, that's an emergency life raft for 4 people.
You can't get 4 people into this thing.
You don't understand. Inside there's a compressed air cylinder. When you release the valve, it fills up large enough to carry 4 people. Well, what about me? You don't have to be insulting. Haven't I always taken care of you? You're the first one I think of.
Didn't mean to hurt your feelings, Olive.
Take that snakeskin off and get that cargo aboard. What about me? What about me?
They appeared as a team in 107 films, starring in 32 short silent films, 40 short sound films, and 23 full-length feature films. They also made 12 guest or cameo appearances, including Galaxy of Stars, promotional film of 1936.
Once I watched Stan in the later years, backstage, I think at the Hippodrome in Birmingham, just before he was going on.
Jack McCabe, a Laurel Hardy author.
And like any performer, there's a nervousness, a certain tension. But the minute that he got his cue, when it was, as I recall, it was a part of the Cuckoo song, the Dance of the Cuckoos, their theme song, there was a particular beat that he started on. And just before that started, there was a beautiful warmth that came to his face as he then walked out. And then when I watched him as he came back out, and there was such a feeling of completion. It was what he was born to do, and it was deeply, deeply moving.
I had to play the character, kind of Dulcie, kind of a bumangina, you know.
Babe London, actress.
And I'm engaged to marry Ollie, and I tell my father I'm going to be married, and he nearly falls apart. And I call Ollie up, and I said, oh, terrible things happened. And I'm crying on the phone, and he says, well, we'll elope. Don't you worry, Dulcie, darling. And I said, oh, how romantic.
How romantic.
Now listen, Dulcie, darling. You be ready to elope at midnight and leave the rest to me.
Oh, Oliver.
Goodbye, ducky lover.
Goodbye, devil dumpling.
He hated being fat.
Virginia Lucille Jones, Oliver Hardy's wife.
And it's something that too many people didn't know that, because with other people he would just laugh and say, well, that's the way, that's my bread and butter. I have to be big, you know, and that, and he would ridicule it in that way. But with me, he would, I knew how he felt, and he would, many times, he would stand and he'd walk up behind me. For instance, I'd be at my dressing table or be in front of a mirror, and he'd walk up behind me and he'd say, look at me, look at me. How could you love a great big fat man like me? I mean, that's something I've never told anyone before in my life, but it was, I mean, it's one of those little personal things that do happen between a man and a wife. He had a series of heart attacks, and then he had a massive stroke, and he was an invalid from then on till the end came. Stan came to see him several times. Sometimes Babe would recognize him, sometimes he wouldn't, because at times he would be lucid, other times he wouldn't. So, but Stan came, and he would come every few months to see him. Of course, by that time, Stan had had a stroke himself.
And I think it's so typical of him that his last words were a gag. The nurse was preparing the hypo after he had his heart attack, and he played it beautifully. He looked rather solemn, and he said, I wish I was skiing now. And the nurse was rather startled and says, I didn't know you skied, Mr. Laurel. And he said, no, I don't, but it's I'd much rather be doing that than doing what I'm doing now, getting a lot of needles stuck into me. And he died a few minutes later.
I can remember crying at a Laurel Hardy movie.
Dick Van Dyke, actor.
I never cried at a Charlie Chaplin movie. Everyone else did, but I never did. But there was a film in which they were to be separated. And it was so sad I cried as a child.
I had a ball all the time I was with them. I didn't realize I was working. It was just downright fun.
That was a tribute to Laurel and Hardy.
Goodbye,
Thank you.